I'm John Reilly. I'm a co-founder, co-CEO of Akkio.
I'm Chopra, business director at Zenith Media.
Okay, everyone probably knows AI is like massively hypey right now, and one of the main areas we've seen it really impact is in content generation, so generative text, generative images, generative video. This is like the low-hanging, easy fruit to get to. Out of curiosity, how many of you have used AI to do generative asset creation in the audience? Yeah, hands up. Yeah, fair amount.
Good.
How many have used it to do it in like the last week or so, like regularly use? A little bit less. Okay. But we're going to talk about today is the intersection of generative AI and data. How many have used generative AI with their data systems in order to extract deeper insights? Just a couple hands, right? So it's a lot less like early traction, but there's a lot deeper value here. And we're going to talk about exactly how this works, give you some examples, and walk through like where that value is created.
Yeah, so how many people here are from a media agency? Anyone? Okay, just a few. Wow. Where are you guys from? Okay, so in our world, we need to use data quite often to make decisions about audiences, media planning and strategy, and campaign optimization and reporting. But the data is, it's difficult to manage. It's difficult to work with. We work with clients that have legacy solutions. We work with clients that are at different levels of the sort of data strategy and their data management. And bringing all this together is complicated. Even in the most sophisticated of agencies and with the most sophisticated of clients, managing data is a real bind and a struggle for us. And we're going to talk to you about how Akkio is going to help improve that.
All right.
Right. So making data-driven decisions. This is what we sort of promise in our organizations. We're data-driven. We make data-driven decisions. But it's incredibly difficult because what's sort of happening and what I'm finding, so I can only tell you from my personal experience, which is that I'm not a data engineer, I'm not a data scientist, but I understand media and I understand what I need from the data and what I need to do with it. But sometimes it's very difficult finding the time and the resources to extract the insights that I need. And I don't have the skills to do it myself. Well, historically, I couldn't do this myself. And I think the game changer for me was when I started using this bit of technology. I realized for the first time in my career, I was actually able to mine these insights for myself. And I knew exactly what I needed to do. I knew the answers. Now, the issue also was our data science team and our data engineers didn't have really any understanding about media. And I had this understanding of media and no understanding of data science. And now this technology has helped sort of both of us come together. So, we can free up our data science community to actually do the things that they should be doing, which is mining insights, thinking of hypotheses and actually being able to prove them, rather than cleaning data, and trying to merge two data sets and do all of these sort of mundane tasks and reporting. We're going to move on.
So you can actually take generative AI and combine it with your data to enable things like chatting to get the insights. You can just ask the question you want and get the answer from the data stack embedded in your environment. That lets you spend more time on the campaigns and making them more impactful. You can build like predictive forecasts and auto ML, and we'll talk a little bit about machine learning. But these tools are getting easier and easier for anyone to use instead of just the data science team. A lot of the complexity is getting abstracted behind a user experience that somebody who's not as familiar with data science can still do the tasks. So you can build predictive forecasts without the data team. And what that does is it accelerates your delivery timeline. So things that used to take weeks can be done in minutes. And that means you can spread the power of that data-driven understanding and hence better decision-making further throughout an agency or a brand.
Yeah, I mean, the ability to adapt is at the speed of culture is actually what our clients are looking for. They expect us to be making optimization decisions. They expect us to be adaptive marketeers, able to move money from here, from this platform to this platform, and do all of this sort of stuff. That's the expectation. But the reality is, is that our teams are bogged down just getting the number to the client. We have to build all of these complicated dashboards, we have to manage them, we have to clean the data, then we have to have an expensive analyst look at it, come up with some recommendations, and then we go and present it to the client. And that process slows us down. Campaigns that I'm kind of traditionally running are like 1 to 2 months. And in that time frame, I might not even get the data back to actually make any, important decision on how I could adapt that campaign in real time. So again, when we looked at this, we were starting to realize that, so we could free up all this time we're spending on data cleansing and all this time we're spending on reporting, and we can actually use that time that we get back to actually start optimizing campaigns. And this is something that, a trend that I'm seeing in our industry, in the media world, which is the clients are now coming to us going, we have this expectation, this bar that we believe you're at. Now we need you to exceed that. We need you to be, performance marketeers across everything that we're doing. We need you to think like that. We need you to be driving these efficiencies. And the only way to do that is to honestly leverage this kind of technology and start sort of freeing up your people's time. I just want to briefly talk about sort of 3 case studies. So the first one, and this was honestly a big winner for us in our organization, and actually was an award-winning case study. We had a problem on the account that I was managing, which was the PCAs, the post-campaign analysis, if you're not familiar with the term, the report that the client needs to understand whether their campaign was successful or not, was taking 8 weeks to produce. So, on my account alone, we run 400 campaigns a month. So, when you start thinking that each report takes 10 to 15 hours to produce, and then you start realizing that's why we've got a backlog. And I think we were like always a couple of hundred campaign reports late. So we then started, we did a test with the Akkio platform, and we said, can we use Akkio to actually help us not only get the data, but actually analyze the data and provide some kind of observation, insight, and recommendation. So again, it took us about 3 months of engineering prompts and working out, you actually have to sequence the prompts to get the AI to actually give you the response in the right sort of way, and then finally you fine-tune and it gives you a great piece of narrative, which you copy and paste and put it into your deck and send to the client. So we did this, we didn't tell the client what we were doing, we just started sending them reports that were pretty much produced by the AI with a bit of human kind of overlay to basically make sure that everything was accurate and correct and factually right. The clients came back to us and said, oh, this is great, you're delivering the campaigns on time, and the grammar has improved dramatically, which was kind of like, oh dear. We then came clean, told them what we were doing with AI, and with the use of AI, we've gone from a kind of having 200 campaigns reports late and delivering, in an 8-week window to delivering PCAs in a 2 to 3 week window. So actually beating the SLA that the client had with us. So there was a dramatic, improvement there. And we're now in our organization, we're looking at this kind of technology for more clients now. So this is a case study that's being, an approach that's being adopted by many more of our client teams. We also thought we could leverage this technology to identify patterns in social data. So we were getting firehose access from Meta and X and platforms like that, and TikTok. And so we had all this massive data, but we couldn't. It was proving very expensive to identify patterns and identify them in real time. And social is real time. We have to think and we have to act in real time. So again, the ability to identify trends. And one of the trends that we identified is this new trend for duping, where people say, hey, look, this is an expensive product you can buy, but this is the cheaper product you can buy. And so our clients were getting worried that they were in these duping kind of trends. And then we did the analysis and came back to them and said, well, actually, most of the time when you're in these duping things, well, more than often than not, people will say that they'll buy the more expensive brand product, your brand. They're going to stay loyal to your brand, regardless of the fact there may be a cheaper alternative. So again, that was really vital information for our clients to understand. And again, we're able to do that now. So we're processing 3 million rows of social data for the client in near real time. And then finally, one of our clients said to us, okay, it's taken us 6 to 8 months to actually understand what is driving brand uplift in the traditional way that we're doing this. Are you able to use AI to get to these numbers, to get to these insights quicker? We turned 6 to 8 months into 4 days. And now we've delivered the first one. It's not 4 days thereafter. It's the second we get the data, all the prompts now exist. We can just rerun that analysis, and we can get that in 45 minutes. So again, that client there has said, okay, this is great, we're in, this is what we want to do and how we want to do it moving forward. So they're just 3 case studies that I wanted to talk to you about.
So I think you can then really imagine the broad impact this is going to have on agencies and marketers, right? You can do audience building, and I'll walk through some examples there, planning, optimization, reporting, and you can automate all of this. You can embed it directly in your infrastructure. You can share this with your end users so they can ask their own questions. You can enable people who receive the reports to chat directly if they have follow-up questions instead of sending you a request. And we'll dig into how it works. We'll do an example. This is just a made-up example, but hopefully representative. Let's imagine your client's an airline, and they're launching a campaign for the summer travel season, right? And you're going to use AI with the data to build an audience, come up with a media plan for how to reach that audience, and then report on it. Typically, this workflow is pretty siloed. You've got data coming from first parties. You've got a bunch of audience general population market data, and that might come from credit card reporting agencies, economic data. You've got retailer data, point of purchase data, even third-party data like the weather, right? You're trying to pull all this data together to help inform your decisions. Got to get all that in a place where you can access it and work off it, and then you've got this media team, data team interaction where it's. Do you guys use a ticketing system? How does?
Yeah, we've got Jira.
Yeah, so typically we hear this as a Jira process, right? You need something done with the data team. You write a Jira ticket, and eventually it comes back, and then of course you have a follow-up question. Well, the way that generative AI works with data is it's able to write the SQL or the Python code to go get the answer directly from your data. And so you can literally just type in, merge the airline's first-party data with the general population data. And it has the context of the data sets in your environment, so it understands that request. It figures out what the joinable criteria are, and it joins them together into an audience. And it tells you all of the augmented information about that audience that came from the population data, but now narrowed down specifically to the airline. So that's a complex join you can do with a simple ask. And then, once you've created an audience and augmented it with your population data, now you can start to understand a lot of details about that audience. So you can be pretty precise, how does this audience compare to the general population? And you can ask specifics, or you can ask, in which ways does this audience most differ from the general population? And that might be age, it could be marital status, it could be, music festivals that you've attended, or occupations or income. But you're able to sort of find out the indexing of an audience versus the population really quickly and easily, and that gives you a lot of power when you're making decisions about how to reach them. You can ask, where do they spend their time online? And if you have consumption data, the answer would be, you can see that they spend most of their time on social media, maybe streaming TV, watching sports. You can get all of these charts or insights directly. You can ask follow-up questions. You can drill as deep as you like into the data just by asking. So there's no feedback loop through Jira ticketing. It's just a direct question to a direct answer, and that's the shortcut. Depending on the format of your report, you might ask it to write a summary. You might ask it to write a paragraph. And so that's where some of the prompting comes into play. If there's a certain way you like your client to see it, you can prompt the engine to write it in that manner, and it'll do it for you. And then you can break it down by a social platform amongst your audience, sort of completely permissive. And then, assuming that your data has the information about what they respond to and how that differs from the population, you can even drill down there, so you can understand the types of campaigns to put together, the types of messaging that might resonate. So this is all data information that can then help your creative be more on point, right? It can help your media buying be more appropriate because it's going to reach them in the right channels.
I just want to add, actually, and again, I think one of the points that you need to be aware of is that all these charts that are being created, you don't have to actually go into Power BI or Tableau and say, I think this might be an interesting, data visualization, and then create that data visualization and then understand it. You literally ask a question. What is driving, what correlates with my sales? What are the top 5 factors that correlate with my sales? It will give you a chart in 3 or 4 seconds. You're like, oh, okay, I'd actually like that represented like this. It'll change the chart. Actually, can you give me some narrative? Can you tell me what's going on here that I can talk to my client about? It will then start writing something. And then you can sort of fine tune that and say, yes, but I need that in a nice bullet point format that I can put in a chart, and it will do it for you. So it's kind of like that ability to see it, think, act quickly without then having to sort of go back to another team going, I kind of need a different type of chart, and also can you make it blue? I don't have to do that anymore. We can just literally get to the numbers quite quickly.
And you can actually take it beyond just chatting with your data, right? You can also, the process of training ML models is getting easier and easier. There's a lot of complex data science under the hood, but really all you need to do is pick the outcome that you're interested in once you've joined these data sets together and hit predict, and it'll train a ML model that'll understand like what the difference is between your audience and the general population automatically for you. It'll tell you the driving factors that indicate participation in audience. Here's the things that most predict somebody will be in an audience versus out of an audience. And then you can take that model once you've trained it, which only takes a couple of minutes, and you can run it against the population data. And when you do that, you can build a lookalike audience, and that's the people, and you can actually stack rank them by probability of audience participation or audience membership. And so you can come up with, okay, for your entire population that in the US, that's like 250 million rows stack ranked, and then you can pick how many you'd like to advertise to. You can take that set of population data and feed it back into your advertising platforms to target your marketing. And then once you have these ML models, you can actually use them on the back end to make some campaign optimizations in real time, because let's say you built like a lifetime value model, which is just a small difference from the audience participation model. If you have like the purchase information from the first party, you can predict how much someone's likely to spend given their characteristics. You can then take that and apply it to the leads that come in, and you can say, okay, this is a lead that's likely to be a high lifetime value lead. This is likely to be a lower lifetime value lead. You can measure like the average like propensity lifetime value of each channel, each campaign, and you can also like retarget. So if you see high lifetime value leads come in, you can automated like follow them in real time and go after them with extra advertising. So all of these ML modeling combined with the ability to do deeper data exploration lets you get really sophisticated in how you attack your marketing problems generally from the data point of view. And then probably most importantly, when you build one of these charts using chat, we're not just giving you like a static chart like you'd make in Excel. These are live data pipelines back to your data warehouse, back to the data sources. That means every time your data updates, which is live, the charts also update, so you don't have to make them again, you make them once, right? And then when you share them, right next to them is a chat interface, so you can ask additional questions, save additional views, dig in, understand what's changed, but these are going to update automatically for you, so they're live data pipelines end to end. All right, so bottom line, AI is going to impact everything you do with data in addition to everything you do on the creative side of things. It's going to let you get like much deeper on your audience insights. Complex questions become really easy. You don't have to worry about how you write the SQL. You'll get like sort of direct access to insights, driving factor analysis if you train ML models. It's just a very deep level of data sophistication, but it's democratized and everyone can access it and start to use it. So it starts to spread the capability further throughout the organization and accelerate the delivery schedule of your data tasks as well.
It's also worth mentioning that it's your legal team will be happy. So again, like in our organization, sharing any kind of data with a LLM is frowned upon. They don't want us to do it. But the way that this actually leverages the data and basically this works you're never passing your data into something like ChatGPT. So again, we found that this has been one of the few products in our organization that the legal team have said, okay, we can use this, we can move forward with this. And that's a big difference between how you traditionally would have done this with just a basic like ChatGPT model.
You can deploy it inside your cloud infrastructure, totally contained, no data ever leaves your control, no need to rewrite any data processing agreements, which is a non-starter, right? Okay, so, I think you're going to see a lot of change in the analytics game in the next few years, driven by AI and generative AI. It's only going to get more sophisticated. You're only going to be able to pull in more external data sources and add more context and get sharper answers as model sophistication increases. I think the big question is, are you ready? Have you started trying the technology? Are you trying to see how it could accelerate your workflows?
Yeah. And again, I do encourage you to explore and experiment with this technology. It is mind-blowing. Like when you actually see it and you actually witness it doing its thing, you're just like, okay, this is a proper game changer. Like in my career, I've never seen anything as radical a game changer as this.
All right, well, that's the end of the PowerPointing you, but we'd love to take questions. There'll be a mic that's around. Open floor. If anyone would like to ask anything, please feel free.
Thank you. Beyond your platform, which sounds like is amazing for ingesting the data, the open source, ChatGPT, how useful do you think that is for starter level for analysing data? Obviously, this is a step above and beyond.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to experiment with what's possible. It's got some limitations in the context window, but you can literally just drop an Excel file in there and ask questions of data with the platform. So, assuming that it's okay with your legal team, it's a nice way to experiment if you're just trying something out. I'd also say we have a free trial. You can just try us too. It's the same difference really, but you can connect up some live sources if you want. I think the barrier to getting started is very low is the bottom line. And you should be experimenting with the tools. You should try as many products as you can, and then I would encourage you to pick the one that works best for your organization. Our job as a tooling vendor is to have the best product and win on a product basis. And so we work hard at that, but you should do analysis and try different things, yeah, for sure.
Hi. I was curious about the source of the data. So where does that data come from specifically? So if you take any company, is that connected to a consumer insights department that provides the data, it's included in the tool, and then the tool sort of digests it and,
Yes, so the question is on what's the source of the data? And, typically you'll connect us directly to your data warehouse like a Snowflake or something like that. So that data is getting pulled in from all over, but we also have a bunch of different integrations with platforms like Google Ads and Meta and LinkedIn and everything, CRMs, kind of you name it, BigQuery. So wherever your data lives, our goal is to connect you to it and let you do this task with it. We're adding integrations all of the time. So typically what we see is a lot of organizations have already started aggregating this data in a centralized location. You could just connect that, or you can go directly to the data source.
Hi, I might have misunderstood, but does the tool allow you to create like a company profile? So, for example, if I had a client, I fed all the data in there that we had from campaigns and so on, and then if, for example, our creative team want to build a new video for a client, would it be able to ask it kind of questions around the creative, what the audience would like? Can I use it for that kind of data to gather insights and just use it as essentially internal search tool?
Yes, I think we'll both take a shot at answering this. I'll go first. I view our responsibility as surfacing what the data says about the audience, but we kind of draw the line at the creative piece. So we're not going to generate the video, we're not going to generate the text or anything like that. But we will tell you, here's what the data says about what the audience responds to. Here's how the audience is different than the population. And as deep as your data goes, you can get all of the insights about things you might want to put in that creative. You can literally take that block and drop it in a creative generator or hand it off to your creatives themselves to work off of as an insight basis for the campaign. But we're not doing the generation of the creative content itself.
No, yeah, that pretty much sums it up. And again, it is a case of the real key here with the creative and is the ability to actually identify patterns within your audiences and your creatives. So again, we're looking at exploring ways that we can enhance and we can annotate our data to actually give us more understanding about what we planned and the audiences that we planned and all of the audience depth and research we did in pre-planning, and then capture all of that, pass it right through our data ecosystem, and then let Akkio pick that up and then identify patterns. So identifying what types of creative work with what types of audiences, what are our segments, and being able to slice and dice and identify patterns that previously would have been very expensive or we would have never seen.
So like one important thing is it starts to make it easier to bring in external data sources and operate on them collectively. And as that improves, like you can augment with, general population data, but maybe weather data, depending on your application. As you pull this extra data in, you get more differentiated insights about the audience than, this is just the name or like, not name, but like this is the person who bought and their demographics. You can get a lot more specific. So it actually starts to be like really important that you have like a deep augment data set, and a lot of agencies do have these deep data sets that are really like, from the credit card agencies and other sources that help you make better decisions.
Yeah, I mean, it's once you start playing around with the technology, you start thinking about, okay, I really want to enrich my data, I really want to augment my data with these other things. Like today we were talking about bringing in wider context, understanding economic conditions, understanding, and sort of having these hypotheses. Does, the number of mortgages being applied for in any given month, is it a proxy indicator for the health and wealth of the nation, as it were? Can we use that data to understand if there's patterns that we can be drawn or correlations that can be drawn? So again, when you start doing this, you start thinking to yourself, all these questions in my career that I've had that I've never really been able to land. I've never had the money, in effect. No client was prepared to pay for it. All of these things that we've thought about in our careers, you're now sort of thinking, I can finally answer this question. I think our industry is kind of nobody knows. We'll extrapolate an entire nation based off of 6,000 people telling us what they watch on TV. So nobody really knows what's going on. But again, this is a start of really trying to get deeper and understanding what's actually happening. And again, it's taking it out of the data science community where we have the skills to do it, but handing it over to the people who have the questions and the burning desire to know it.
Hi there. There's been a lot of awareness about how AI has its limitations in delivering results, right? And how we have to constantly question it. As you've been developing this platform, what sort of weaknesses have either you observed or the clients observed in the reports that have come through?
So interesting question. So there are like some considerations with how you interact with data with natural language. And the foremost of which is like people are really not that specific in what they're asking for when they type a request. Tell me something interesting about the data does not have a lot of context surrounding it. And the language model will like typically come up with some interesting things. The more context you give it, the better. And so we've had to build these really tight feedback loops into the product. And you can see over here at our booth, which is right over there if you want to play around with it. But we tell you, okay, here was your question, but here's how we interpreted your question specifically. And we did these tasks. And if you want to see the code that we wrote to do it, you can click over here and see that in case you want to send it to somebody in the data team to validate. So there's a lot of like feedback loops. And then, like taking that to an even more sophisticated level, you can imagine like we do a lot of stuff on the back end to be like adversarial with our interpretation. So we don't just take your ask and interpret it once and then run that through the system. We ask it to interpret it 3 different ways and then compare them and see like how similar are these interpretations. And then you can have like an adversarial model whose only job is to like question if that was a correct like interpretation or that the code works or not and fix it if it doesn't. So there's a lot of structure behind it that makes it work. The nice thing is though, it doesn't hallucinate, right? It's just writing code to get the answer from your data and bring it back to you. So the answer is just coming from the data. The way that goes wrong is it answers in a way you didn't expect. So it's important that we surface, here's how it interpreted your question so that you know the context for the answer you're getting. And of course you can always drill down and ask for more depth on that, but if you don't put that right in front of people, they don't learn how to be more specific in their questioning. It's kind of like Google search. You learn how to search a little bit more specifically for what you're looking for over time. Same concept.
Yeah, I'd like to iterate on that. So what we found when we first started using it is we were deeply frustrated for the first few months. And it wasn't that the tech couldn't do what we needed it to do, is that we realized we really didn't know how to brief and how to ask the right question. And so we then started on a project, like on designing a sort of a methodology for prompt engineering. And we started thinking about how do we ask these questions? What does each question need to contain? And slowly we realized that, like our 20, 30 word initial prompts were woefully inadequate. And then we're moving to 200-300 word prompts where we're being very prescriptive, exactly what we want. And then we're sort of talking about the sequence that you ask the questions, because the technology kind of sees question one and then understands what you're then asking. It has the context of question two, so on and so forth. So we started thinking, okay, so get it to do one task, now let it get to do the next task. And we worked out slowly, it took us like 3 months of playing, how to ask the right question, until eventually we got to a series of like 50 prompts for our PCA, and we know now if you run those 50 prompts, you will get a great quality report out of it. But it's one of those, don't expect to get the right answer the first time you play with the technology. You really got to invest time in learning how to brief. And again, when you look at our industry, you're thinking, wow, nobody knows how to brief in our industry. And that's ultimately what you are doing, yeah.
And to that point, over time, we're adding the ability to put more context into the engine itself. So like the specificity of your questions will go down because it'll know the types of questions you ask and how you want them answered. That makes it easier on the like non-specific end user. So it's only going to get better from here, but you do need to tell it specifically what you're looking for, and the more specific you are in your ask, the better, obviously. Just like you were asking an analyst to do a task, really.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid we've run out of time, but you're on booth 156.
Yep, we're right over here, so you can stop by.
There you go. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Really interesting. I'll be over myself to come and have a chat. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.